Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Unraveled and Rising podcast. We were just having a little discussion before we started the podcast officially, but we really want to talk about a topic this week that a lot of us deal with. And I know all three of us on this podcast are dealing with it currently with a family member. That, the real deep trauma with dealing with family members that you have conflict with, maybe even don't even talk to any longer, and how you heal yourself or work through that yourself, because you don't have to forgive and actually start talking to somebody again if it's not good for you, but you still have to deal with the trauma yourself and heal yourself through that. And so obviously all of us would love our family members to be well and healed themselves, but we don't have control over what our family members do. We only have control over what we do. So the goal is for anybody out there dealing with something like this, how do you work through it and how do you heal yourself? And because it's a real deep hurt when a family member hurts you or does something to you. So that's kind of what we want to talk about today. So I don't know, Terry, if you want to
Yeah.
kind
Yeah,
of
just go. I would love to just add to what you said. I do think so. Personally, I do think that forgiveness is one thing that is something that you do that all of us really should work through. Reconciliation is completely not always on the table, but forgiveness is for us. Forgiveness is for us, not for them. I always say that when I learned to walk through the forgiveness process in my 12-step program, I learned that the captive was me, and the only person I was setting free was myself. It wasn't them, it was me. And I was actually creating so many things on myself by holding on to unforgiveness. So it wasn't for them, it was 100% for me. And I had to learn how to walk through that. I literally remember sitting there going, I do not. And when I'm talking about the process of forgiveness that I'm talking about was when I was going through my divorce and dealing with the betrayal of that. I did not know how I was ever going to work through that. I did not know. I sat with God saying, I don't know how you expect me to do this, because I don't know if I can do this. But I had to open myself up to the process in that it was possible and that I could do it. And then I realized that the forgiveness process was for me and not for anyone else. Reconciliation reconciliation was not on the table. So there was no way of reconciliation for the marriage, but forgiveness was, and forgiveness helped my children. It helped our relationship now as friends and co-parenting our kids. It's healthy for our family. And there was a way of doing that in a healthy way, but reconciliation doesn't always happen. And sometimes, be honest, it's not a safe thing to reconcile some relationships. Forgiveness that was really challenging for me to work through. One areas was with one of my siblings. And I made a promise to my dad when he was passing away that I would work through that. And I believe that I did make a lot of great steps towards that. But then on the other side, that other part of that is not in my control. And today I would love it to be in a different place than where it's at, and it's not. But I've had to not own that journey for this other sibling, and then I've also had to say I have to protect my peace, and I can't get entangled every single time with things that are going on in that relationship and not be tied to the control that certain people want to have. And I have to just be like, I am going to disengage from this because it's not serving me. It has nothing to do with the other person, but it has everything to do with me, because if I continue to allow it, I'm going to at some point pick up resentment. And that is going to be a cancer in my life. Not for anyone else, but for me.
I think the mistake we make too is we feel like forgiveness is excusing any behavior that was done wrong to you, and that is not the case. It's not excusing anything. Again, it's completely for you, just like Terry said. It's 100% for you. And the forgiveness is just saying, I release the fact that this could have been different. I released the fact that everything could have been different than it is. I had a lot of this with my dad, who I kind of roller coaster ride with forgiveness, not forgive, forgive, not forgive. It's like, I'm like, you know what I mean? That, and I'll never forget something my dad said to me one time when we were arguing about it, and I was really upset. And he says, "What do you want from me?" I said, "I want you to hurt as bad as I do." And he goes, "How do you know I don't?" And when he said that to me, it really struck me, because maybe I was like not thinking about I wasn't thinking of his side of it and the hurt he had, and what he dealt with in Vietnam, and then all that horribleness, and then how he had to face it when he got back, and he didn't, trying to deal with his own emotions and things like that. So that really stuck with me. It's like, you don't really know what's going on in the other person's mind. You don't know the struggles they're having. And
well, it goes back to hurting people hurt people.
Yes. It's so true.
Mm-hmm.
So that forgiveness piece is big, and it's really just letting go inside of you any kind of anger and frustration and hurt inside of you for that. And maybe, just like Terry said, send some love to that other person. Just send them some love and good vibes, and just let it go within yourself. Let go of the anger and resentment, because that's what's eating you up, is that. It's really not personal. You shouldn't look at it as personal, because they're dealing with stuff that you may not know about. And I know we take all those things very personally, and I get it, because it's very hurtful when a family member, does something to you. But maybe they're just really struggling, and they can't treat people well right now, or they can't say things nice because they just can't have that within themselves, or whatever it is. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Well, and one really great way to look at it is think about how that person may be treating themselves on a normal basis. If they're treating you unkindly, think about how they're treating themselves, like on a daily basis, because it's probably 100 times worse than the treatment may be coming off on you. Because we're always treating ourselves way worse than we're treating people. When I look back at the way I treated people, sometimes I think, man, if they only knew how much harder I was on myself. And I was pretty hard on people for a long time. But man, was I just like really hard on myself. I can't even believe how hard I was on myself. So I think that when we can think of it that way, we can offer some kind of empathy and compassion for people.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think, absolutely offer empathy and compassion. But like you said, that doesn't always mean that there's going to be a reconciliation. And sending love. I know I've shared, I'm, estranged from my two daughters, which has been very difficult. But again, they've got to, move forward with their journey, their life. I'm always going to be here. I send them love every single day, and there's nothing they can do about it. And I will continue to do that until the day I die. And I do have forgiveness. I've continued to work on myself, because that's all I can do. That's all I can control, is try to be the best version of me I can be. And Lennon, if they ever decide they want back in, the door's always open.
Absolutely.
And don't you find too with certain people? I find this with me, that there's certain people in your life that, like, as an example with my son, what I'm doing with my son right now, I'm the person that created the issue. My son didn't create the issue. I created the issue. And I'm avoiding talking to him about it, because some people you talk to, it's like it's a very uncomfortable like feeling to have to come back to that person, because they don't always receive even an apology. They don't receive all that well. They kind of still seem very closed off. Even if you come in legitimately with an apology, they don't they're just a difficult person to apologize to. Does that make sense? There's certain people in life that are just difficult to apologize to because they don't take it well. I don't know how else to say it, but that if you're the person that did the wrong in the family to a family member or whatever, or a close friend, then try to decide how you're going to come back to that relationship, if you so choose, and give of you and give your heart, and legitimately come in, apologizing or saying, that you did wrong. That's also difficult to do.
Yeah. And that, many to our audience, there might be a lot of people on here that have been part of a 12-step recovery program. And that's part of the program. Like you do an amends.
Yep.
And so you take your inventory, but part of the inventory is taking an inventory of yourself. But part of that is what are some things that you did to harm others?
Yeah.
And so, and then making an amends to those people. And it might even be a spiritual amends. Those people may have passed on, and you make a spiritual amends, and it may not even be a safe amends that you can make with someone, like we were talking about. It may not be a person that is safe to do that with, but you can write a letter, and you can do a spiritual amends and say the things that you need to say. At the time, it wasn't okay for me to do it with there was too much anger, and I had to do a spiritual amends with my ex-husband. And I wrote a letter, and I literally wrote to myself what I needed him to say. And I said it in the way that he would have spoken to me, and I mailed it to myself. And so that was really healing for me. And so, and then on the flip side, I wrote letters to my sons. And, right now I'm saying this on here, but I remember one phone call I had with my son on the phone. He kind of laughed at me and was like, "Okay, Mom." You know what I mean? When I apologized for something that I did, and I know was painful for him, and he just kind of laughed and was like, "Okay." And I said, "You may not understand this right now, but in 20, 30 years, when I feel like we go through this like midlife thing," I said, "it may make sense to you, and you may remember this conversation that I had come back and said and made this apology to you, because you don't know when you're going to need it, but the memory of the conversation may have some impact on his life one day." And those are not comfortable conversations. You're right. They are not comfortable conversations. But then also making the amends with yourself, that had to be the hardest thing that I had to do, because I had to take accountability for myself, that I actually stayed in relationships far too long, and I devalued myself and accepted things in my life. And I had to own up to I wasn't the perfect wife. I did things too. I'm not going to sit here and put myself on a pedestal and say that I did everything right and that I was the matriarch here, because I was not. I was equally did things the same. So taking accountability for my part, it was not just, it works both ways, right? I always say there's his story, my story, and the truth, right? That's in every relationship, right?
I think for me too, with my son, the thing I noticed is because he had, I don't want to say disabilities. That's not the right word, but he had challenges when he was young. And so I had to do everything. Like I felt like I was consumed with having to advocate for him and protect him and all these different things for him. So it was hard for me to turn that off when he became an adult. In fact, I worked with Dr. Ed. I worked through that with him to try to step back and not try to overstep and stuff. But again, I'm human. And so sometimes I screw that up. And I feel like his roommates are not paying their fair share. And so I don't like my son being taken advantage of. So I kind of overstepped there. And so my son did not appreciate that, which I completely understand. So now I'm giving him space, but it's been a month. And so I'm not going to have to, I want to, just send him a message and let him know that I'm aware that I did it and that I should not have. And I'm working on myself and want to let him know that my goal is to not do that to him, because I want him to be able to take care of himself and feel in control of his own life. So I'm just kind of treading lightly right now, trying to figure out what I'm going to send the message. So,
well, and that takes tremendous strength to own your part and say, I overstepped, and that will speak to your son, that, wow, that my mom would have never done that before. Like, she's taken ownership in a part that she should, she overstepped here, but she owned it. Yeah. And she apologized for it. That's huge.
Yes. So that's what I'm going to do. Anybody, I don't know if anybody others out there, feel free to comment. We'd love it if you comment on the episodes when we put them out there, because we know, and I just know it just because of people that I deal with in my own life, in my own little circle of things that people are dealing with. It's very similar stuff that we talk about on this podcast. So we love to hear your comments or share your stories. And we, again, this is a community where we can support each other, and it's a safe place. We're not going to judge, or we're not going to come at you and feel weird about it. So, if you have comments, please share those.
Yeah.
Kimberly, I was going to ask you, because I know it's been, we've talked about this before. Can you guys hear me okay? It's showing my internet is questionable.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. How were you able to work through it? And again, I don't know the situation going on with your two daughters completely, but they're kind of working together, right? That's what's going on, is they're kind of directing each other. And that's why there's two daughters that you're not talking to, because they're they're teaming up.
Yep. And it's been almost 2 years. In November, it'll be 2 years for my oldest daughter, who also took my grandchildren away from me. And then my youngest daughter joined her just this past year. And I part of it was definitely when it all came out, I felt very used, because I was. It was kind of a let mom help you kind of a thing, so you can get to this place, from my oldest daughter to my youngest daughter, and then you can let her go then too. So I felt very used on top of it. But then, then again, that this is their journey, and how they treat me, how you're going to treat your mother, says a lot about you. And my mother has pretty much disowned me since all of this as well, because she's chosen sides. And I've got a sister that's chosen sides without even having a conversation with me. Like I just became the villain overnight. And it was tough. And it's just day by day. It's one day at a time. It's one conversation at a time. When it comes up, Terry, I've spent the last couple of days with Jill, Bonnie's daughter, because I've been touring with her for a client. And so she and I have been talking about that, about the estrangement and stuff. And she's like, I would just die. So when this comes up, I mean, yes, it's emotional. It brings tears to my eyes. It doesn't feel great, but it also is what it is. And it's their journey. I'm not a villain. I'm not a bad person. I didn't do these awful things I'm being accused of it. But if that's what they want to believe, then, that's on them. They'll have their own challenges. My youngest daughter's pregnant, as far as I know. So another grandchild that, I was let know that I wouldn't be able to be in part of their life. And actually, I was told I'm not even allowed to talk about estrangement on the podcast. I got an email from my youngest daughter. But you know what? You're not the boss of me. There's free speech. I have my feelings. I matter too. And that's what I've had to just really keep in the forefront. I'm not going to curl up into a ball and die. I'm sad. I miss them, but my life goes on, and my life's important, and the impact that I make in the world is important to me. And that's what I'm keeping in the forefront. And I've written the letters. That's been very helpful to me, to write the letters. I remember I've written letters to my mom, my sister, my girls. And I remember sharing one of them with my husband. He's like, "Oh, you're not going to send that, are you?" And I said, "No."
He's like, "Whoa, okay, stop that."
Hang on, sister.
They're very healing.
They are. But I felt so much better.
And that's the thing, is it's for you.
Exactly.
This work they're tools for you. It's never for anyone else. Our growth and our journey is always inner work, and it's always for us. It's never for anyone else. Everybody else has to do their own work, and they're on their own journey. We can only control us.
And then it makes me think, okay, what's my lesson to learn out of this? You know what I mean? And it has helped me feel closer to my source, my energy, my universe. So I feel like, that's kind of the gold around all of this. It has made me look deeper inside, and it's actually given me more confidence and made me feel better about myself in a lot of ways, because I'm continuing to grow and learn and evolve.
Yes.
And I feel bad for people that, not feel bad, but empathy for, on some of these groups, that there's women that have been estranged from their children for like 20 years and they're still sitting next to the phone. I'm not going to do that. My life means something, and I'm going to make the best of it.
Well, and I think that's where it goes back to just praying for people and just sending love and just seeing the good for them as well, and then just hoping that we're all on a journey, and just hoping that everyone finds their way. If we did it, they can too.
Yeah.
And if they find their way back to us. You know what I mean? And they find their greater source. So. And that's what we all want, right? Because then it just goes back to love, right?
I was going to say too, if you're the person that did the hurt and you really want to reconcile with a family member or a loved one, the steps there, you can also just kind of visualize yourself with that person in the future and having a loving, caring relationship. You can do visualization, you can put it in your meditations, but I would just recommend kind of reaching out slowly and maybe sending an email. If you can't talk to them, I would maybe recommend, I don't know, Terry, if you have any thoughts on this, but even just sending them an email every now and again, just saying, how you're feeling, and, but you got to come in with some humility, because if you did the wrong and you're going in there, you better go in there with some feelings,
and it's got to be
from the heart.
It's got to be genuine, right? We can't have sorries with no action behind it. Right. And it's like, what is behind the sorry? What are some things you're doing behind that? Because if it's I've heard this before, and then it's the same actions, are they going to believe that? So it's got to be genuine. Or
working on yourself to make sure you go back in a genuine way is obviously, unless you have some awareness around why you're doing it, and the deep stuff within you that's causing that behavior, you're not going to be able to go back in a genuine way, just like you said, Terry.
But I think it's also not automatically that you were wrong either. You know what I mean? It's not a matter of right or wrong. It's just really like I really feel like I've been made to be the villain. Okay. I'm the villain in their story, and that's okay. Again, it's their story. Yeah. They've told themselves a story, and whatever they need to do, again, in their journey, whether it's justifying it or, whatever that is. I mean, I don't really know, because there's not communication. Right. You know what I mean? It's like, I've got a list of things, which we had talked about every single one of them, and then they're out. Blocked from social media, blocked from phones, blocked from emails.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would refer more though to if we know we did something wrong, not that if they're blaming us unfairly. I mean, if we know we did something wrong.
And I think, and also being open, just always being open to being open and asking for clarification. Like if there's being open to listen to someone's perspective. I remember when there was a situation with my son, and he was explaining a situation about his perspective, his perspective of the way he had grown up, and the way he perceived things. And I immediately felt like it was an attack on motherhood, on the way I was mothering. And I had to just take a deep breath, locate myself, which is what we talk about. Mm-hmm. Locate, okay, where is this coming from? And I had to just take a deep breath, and I had to stop, and I had to listen to what he was saying. And he was not attacking me. He was literally just trying to share his perspective of what is the little boy he was seeing at that time, and what his life, what he was living through, and how he saw it. And man, had I attacked him because of what he was just sharing, it would have been a completely different experience. And it probably would have damaged maybe a communication channel that we were starting to build. And so thank God for the awareness and for the development that I had already done on myself, because it could have went completely differently. And so, just being willing to listen when you are having these discussions on both sides, being willing to listen to what's really being said and take ourselves out of it and not take things personal.
Yeah. That's so hard to do sometimes.
I was going to say easier said than done.
Very hard to do. To you guys, and I was just on my call this morning with my coach, and he had to walk me through something where I was seeing my perspective of something was not that.
Yeah.
And I got there, but I was not 100% seeing it that way. And so I felt like I had in some way, but there was still part of me that the perspective was a little off. So it's not all there. That's I'm just going to put a plug in, but this is why it's important to have people in your corner that are working on themselves and have a coach. Like it is so important.
Because they can challenge you on that stuff. Because the reason you're taking it personally is because it's kicking something up in you.
Yes.
That you may or may not even be aware of,
A lot of this is
the great thing about working with someone is the awareness comes to you then at that point of, oh, that's why I feel.
And a lot of it
holds up the mirror for you.
Because a lot of it is unconscious pattern behavior that we've done forever that we don't even know that it's there.
Yep. It's so true. And healing does not require anybody's permission. It doesn't require the other person's permission. And family doesn't have to be DNA either, because what we call the word family that we use doesn't have to be somebody that's, related to you with DNA. It could be the people that you've surrounded yourself with that are your support system, the people that want you to do well and are wanting to, they're by your side, rooting for you in every way possible. That to me is family as well. So it doesn't have to be blood relatives. You know what I mean?
100%. Yeah.
And I was thinking because I did a little.
Well, I think even the three of us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And we still we can have our own fights amongst ourselves. Like,
oh yeah.
It was like, but we still challenge each other and we still want each other to do well. That's the thing.
And we love each other, even though we may ruffle each other. We still know we love each other.
Yes, absolutely.
And that is deeper than any disagreement we may have. And we know that.
I have a good affirmation here that came up when I was doing some research for this particular topic. And the affirmation that came up in regards to this situation when it said, I can honor where I come from while building a life that feels safe and true to me. So it's like kind of something you could just take a variation of that, but I can honor my family and where I came from as I, focus on kind of my own family that I create around me that's safe and true to me and wanting me to do well kind of thing. But I think that's important too. So
yes. Values, beliefs, everything, and the people that love you and support you, they're going to honor that.
Yes.
Well, and also, as we age and as we go through experiences, some of that stuff changes too.
It does.
So what may have been acceptable to you in the past may no longer be acceptable, or what, different situations that maybe you were in the past, you wouldn't allow yourself to be in now. And it's just from growing in awareness and just tolerance, boundaries, all the things that hopefully we learn as we go through different experiences in life and we grow and emotionally mature. It's
thank goodness for emotional maturity. Somebody was asking me something about, what was it? Oh, my brother. Maybe was that something about, because I was talking about a connection. My brother and I did not get along when we were younger, but we're very close now. And like, what changed? I go, I grew up. I matured. Both of us did. That's kind of like what it is. Because I was really mean to him when I was a teenager. But it's just growing up and maturing. And thank goodness for the gratitude around the fact that I have a brain that allows me to mature and I can change things about myself and have awareness around that. But yeah, that's it.
Emotional intelligence is a good thing. And we are not our emotions. We are not our emotions. And that's the thing.
I had a great mentor too at my previous job that I had in my 30s. And, I still had episodes at work where I would get angry and slam doors and stuff like that. And he would come into my office later. He was such a wonderful man, and he's still a good friend of mine. And he would come in and he goes, I think you could have handled that a little bit differently, Michelle. And I would be like, because I would call my mom and go, I'm getting fired today because I just slammed my office door. And he was so gentle and loving and caring and such a great mentor for me, because he would say, you could have handled that way different. And then he would say, I don't want this. I don't want to see that again. So he would be like, you can't just go around here creating issues for everybody at the office.
Well, the greatest thing for me when I realized that about myself was going, what is this doing? What is this telling me about me?
Right.
Like, what is this? What was that?
Why am I so angry? Why am I feeling this way? What is going on inside that's creating this feeling?
And that is a repeated question I ask myself. Is this?
Well, and that's another thing the three of us have in common too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why do we have so much anger? I mean, all three of us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just really. And it feels
and that
so
just
good
this is
to
not
be able to give that away.
Yeah. And that just that question saying, this is not about them, Terry. This is not, has nothing to do with them. What is this bringing up in you?
Yeah.
That is a question.
Yeah, absolutely. And we hope this discussion today, resonates with you guys, and there's something in there that a nugget you can take from it. Again, we would love to hear your story, so feel free to comment. Also, if there's a topic that you really want to hear about or you want us to talk about, we would love for you to put that in the comments as well, and we'd be happy to talk about it moving forward. We're going to have a few guests coming up. Next week, we have Anne, who runs a nonprofit in Denver that actually, it's like Make-A-Wish, but for caregivers, kind of. She honors caregivers that are taking care of loved ones and people at home that
Grant a Dream.
Grant a Dream. So we're going to have her on next week to talk about that, the trauma of taking care of a family member. And even some of these things are probably in there, because there's probably moments where you're like, it's a struggle. And she's had to take care of her daughter, which she'll share that story next week. But yeah, that's a struggle too.
Yeah. She's a great friend. I'm excited to have her on.
Yes.
Is she still in Texas, or is she back?
No, she's in Texas. Yeah. And she's starting Grant a Dream in Texas.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she's going to start doing some retreats and things in Texas as well, which is
cool. And for our audience, she's also been mentored by Dr. Ed.
She is. Like, we're just going to have all Dr. Ed's patients on here. Patients the right word, but clients.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, everyone, for watching and listening. We appreciate it, and we will see you next time.
Take care. Bye.